There is a conversation that football supporters in the United States have been having among themselves for decades, sometimes out loud and sometimes only in internet forums at 2 in the morning, about which city in the country has the most genuine, deepest football culture. The kind most resembling that of the great European cities, where football is not a sport but a religion. And the answer, for anyone who has been in Seattle on a Seattle Sounders match day, is always the same: Seattle. It is not a competition Seattle wins on size or history, or the players it has produced. It wins it through something harder to measure and easier to feel. The relationship that City has with football is authentic in a way that few American cities can claim. Lumen Field, the downtown stadium shared by Seattle Sounders of MLS and the Seattle Seahawks of the NFL, has for years been one of the loudest stadiums on the American continent when the Sounders play, with a supporters group, the Emerald City Supporters, that sings for 90 minutes with an intensity that has no precedent in the United States. The Sounders have won the MLS Cup several times, and each title has been celebrated with the kind of euphoria that in other American cities is reserved for American football or basketball. That football culture is the perfect context for understanding why Seattle, as a 2026 World Cup host city, is not just another venue, but a special one. The stadium is called Lumen Field in normal life and Seattle Soccer Stadium for the World Cup, as FIFA's commercial rules dictate. It is located in downtown Seattle, in the SoDo neighborhood, steps from the historic center and with public transport access that no other venue in the tournament has. The stadium holds nearly 69,000 people and has an architectural characteristic that makes it unique. It is one of the loudest stadiums in the world by design. The lateral covers that wrap around the stands trap sound in a way that amplifies and concentrates it over the pitch, creating an acoustic experience that visiting players describe as one of the most intimidating in American football. Belgium, ranked 8th in the FIFA World Rankings, is the highest-ranked team heading to Seattle for the group stage, Sky Sports. And which matches are played there? On June 15th, Belgium against Egypt from Group G. On June 19th, the United States against Australia from Group D. On June 24th, Qatar against the European playoff winner. On June 26th, Egypt against Iran. Then a round of 32 match on July 1st and a round of 16 match on July 6th. Sky Sports. The match on June 19th deserves special attention. The United States against Australia in Seattle is one of those matches that carries an emotional weight that goes beyond the 90 minutes. Seattle is the most football-passionate city in the United States, and hosting the national team in a World Cup group stage match is the kind of moment that City has been waiting for decades. Lumen Field that day is going to be painted red, white and blue in a way that will make the stadium seem to move. And if Australia, which has a serious football culture and passionate supporters who travel far to see the Socceroos, brings its own colours, the contrast is going to be one of the most striking of the group stage of the entire tournament. The Belgium against Egypt match on June 15th is also a clash of styles and continents that promises to be one of the most interesting of the first round. Sky Sports Belgium, with its golden generation that is no longer so young but still has individual quality of the highest level, against Egypt, the African team with the most World Cup history from the continent and with a passion for football that anyone who has visited Cairo can confirm. And then there is the Egypt against Iran encounter on June 26th, which in the current geopolitical context carries a particular symbolic weight. Two countries from the Middle East and North Africa, with passionate supporters and important communities in the United States, playing in Seattle, a city that has one of the largest Middle Eastern immigrant populations in the American Northwest. That match is going to bring to Lumen Field an atmosphere that probably nobody in Seattle will have seen before. For getting to Lumen Field, Seattle has a huge logistical advantage over all the other venues in the tournament. The stadium is in the city centre and has excellent public transport access. Seattle's light rail system, the Link Light Rail, has a station called Stadium Station that is literally 200 metres from the main entrance of Lumen Field. From SeaTac Airport, The Link Light Rail takes less than 40 minutes to reach the stadium directly, with no transfer or car needed. It is the simplest and most efficient logistics of all the 2026 World Cup venues. Also, downtown Seattle is completely walkable, with the stadium surrounded by restaurants, bars, and the Elliott Bay waterfront a few minutes on foot. For accommodation, the choice in Seattle is simpler than at other venues because the city has a compact and well-connected downtown where almost any option leaves you close to everything. The downtown neighborhood, the historic center with Pike Place Market and views of Elliott Bay, is the most touristic and most complete option. There, you find everything from the iconic Hotel Monaco to more affordable options in the First Hill streets. Capitol Hill, which is the most creative and most nocturnal neighborhood in Seattle, has interesting accommodation options and a nightlife that goes from craft beer bars to electronic music clubs that run until late. The Belltown neighborhood, between downtown and the waterfront, has a high concentration of restaurants and bars and is 20 minutes walk from the stadium. And now, the part that is going to most surprise visitors who arrive in Seattle with preconceived ideas. The city has a cultural, gastronomic, and landscape richness that makes it one of the most satisfying travel experiences in the United States. Pike Place Market is the heart of Seattle. The public market that has operated since 1907 in a historic building on the Elliott Bay waterfront is one of the most famous markets in the world, not for its size, but for its authenticity and its energy. The fishmongers who throw salmon through the air with the skill of jugglers. The flowers that fill the entrance stalls with colour. The locally roasted coffee served in cups that smell the way coffee should smell. The vendors of local products from Washington State, the apples and cherries and artisan cheeses that are part of the agricultural richness of the Pacific Northwest region. And in the lower level of the market, the smaller and more local stalls where supporters from around the world are going to discover flavours they did not expect to find in the Pacific Northwest. The first Starbucks in the world is at Pike Place Market. For many international supporters, especially Europeans who have a complicated relationship with Starbucks as a symbol of coffee globalization, visiting that location at 1912. Pike Place is an experience that combines historical curiosity with a certain irony. The first Starbucks, the one that started the chain that now has more than 35,000 locations worldwide, is a small shop with original 70s decoration where the line to enter can last more than an hour. It is worth going even just to see the queue from outside and take a photo of the original sign. The Space Needle is the symbol of Seattle in the same way the Eiffel Tower is the symbol of Paris. A futuristic tower built for the 1962 World's Fair that from its 184 metres offers a 360-degree view that includes the city centre, the snow-capped Mount Rainier to the southeast, the Olympic Mountains to the west, Elliott Bay and Puget Sound, and on the clearest days, even Mount Baker to the north. The view from the Space Needle on a clear summer day is one of the most beautiful views in North America. The Seattle Art Museum, known as SAM, has a first-class art collection with particular emphasis on Pacific Northwest art, including one of the best Native American art collections in the United States. The Chihuly Garden and Glass, the museum dedicated to the work of blown glass artist Dale Chihuly, is one of the most visited destinations in the city, and also one of the most surprising. Color glass installations that create a completely unique visual universe, illuminated in ways that make the colors change according to the time of day and the intensity of the light. But if there is one experience that defines Seattle in a way no other place can replicate, it is the Washington State Ferry that crosses Puget Sound to the Kitsap Peninsula or to Bainbridge Island. The journey takes about 35 minutes from the Seattle terminal, and during those 35 minutes, you see one of the most spectacular views a boat trip can offer. The Seattle skyline with the Space Needle in the background, the snow-covered Cascade Mountains to the east, and the Olympic Mountains to the west, reflected in the grey and green waters of Puget Sound. The ferry is part of the state public transport system, and the ticket costs less than $10. It is one of the cheapest and most beautiful journeys in the United States. A weather warning that any honest Seattle guide must include: yes, Seattle has a reputation for rain, and that reputation is not entirely unjust. The city receives frequent rain for much of the year, but June and July are the driest and sunniest months in Seattle, when the city emerges from the 9-month cloud that covers it in winter and spring and shows a summer that is objectively one of the most beautiful in the United States. Temperatures between 20 and 25 degrees Celsius, clear skies that reveal the snow-capped mountains on the horizon, days that last until 10 at night. The World Cup arrives at the best time of year for Seattle. And that is not an accident, but the result of FIFA choosing dates with knowledge of what the city can offer in that period. One last thing you cannot ignore if you go to Seattle. The city's gastronomic scene is one of the best in the United States. Pacific salmon, especially Alaskan king salmon and Washington coho, prepared every way imaginable from the simplest grill to the most sophisticated preparations at waterfront restaurants. The seafood of Puget Sound, the oysters and mussels and clams harvested in the cold northwestern waters that have a flavor the seafood of other latitudes cannot match. The specialty coffee, because Seattle is not only the city of Starbucks, but also the city where the American specialty coffee movement has some of its finest expressions. With roasters like Victrola, Slate and Lighthouse producing coffees that Italians would drink without embarrassment. Seattle is a city that does not shout. It is a city that speaks to you softly and waits for you to lean in and listen. And when you do, when you leave behind the preconceptions about rain and introversion and technology, you discover one of the most beautiful, most intelligent, and most football-passionate cities in the United States. Welcome to the Emerald City. The city that in the summer of 2026 is going to shine with the colors of the world.